Well, welcome everybody to day two, the live stream of the day two recap. And we are excited for everybody that is here. If you got an opportunity to listen, I am James McLand, one of the hosts of Igniting the Next Generation. This is the Empower Summit of this one, which is a little bit different than some of the one we do in the winter, which is more of the elevate more youth. This one is geared towards parents and educators. So we are excited to have this. Let's just go around the room and let everybody introduce themselves to our public.
Don, do you want to start us off?
At once.
Yeah, I'll start us off. Don Manning, my wife and I, Suzanne, have a ministry called Crazy Cool Family. And our sole purpose is to inspire and equip parents to build their best family. We just believe that every parent can win, and I'm excited to be able to share with you guys tonight.
Petra, awesome. You're up.
I know, Don, I'm so excited to be here with you. We haven't met in person, but I'm catching up. I was just saying I'm catching up to all the speakers. It is a pleasure to be here and an honor to share this virtual stage with everybody. My name is Petra Krebs. I'm known as the Strengths Strategist. I'm a speaker and trainer for best-selling author John Gordon, as well as a Gallup Strengths coach. And so what I am sharing on this summit is really how to look for strengths. These strengths are good too, but I'm talking about gifts and talents in our youth. And it all starts by recognizing them in ourselves first, doing the work within ourselves so that we can lead others well. And then how do we recognize it in others? So I can talk about that all night, and I think we are going to, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. Tammy, go ahead.
All right. I'm Tammy Matheny. I am a mental game coach and author, as well as a team member with Petra on the John Gordon team. And we call it co-host or triple host of the summit. But glad to have everybody that has joined the past 2 days. I believe in what we're doing and providing these amazing speakers to allow those that work with our youth additional resources, inspiration, motivation. And I went today, my presentation was today, and it's on the power of your why. So I look forward to sharing that a little more. Also on here, I have a young lady. She's in college, softball player, and she's joined us and been doing an internship. Lindsay, tell them a little bit about you.
Yeah, so my name's Lindsay. Like Tammy said, I'll be a senior in college up in Maine. I play softball up here, and I'm just studying to do what Tammy does, basically. So yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Lindsay. I'm Jeff Hagee. I'm the other part of the trio of the co-hosts. I'm with James today. We didn't present, but we're excited for everyone that did. We had some great presentations. I'm a coach, work with entrepreneurs and athletes, and I'm co-creator with Tammy of the Confident Athlete program, and we co-authored Challenger Deep, Athletes Rise Above Adversity. So let's get right. There it is. Let's get right into this. We had some amazing presentations yesterday, and today it was just as amazing. So thank you all for being able to jump on with us. We want to start with those that are on with us live. So Dawn, let's start with yours. If you want to share a bit of a recap of what you talked about, and I guess also this is shared on different people's social medias right now. If you haven't registered for the summit, you can still get day one. Each day is available for 48 hours. So if you sign up, you'll still have access to day one. Day two, you'll have it for 48 hours, and we got 2 more days coming. So go to ignitenextgen.com and you can still get registered. But Dawn, give us a recap of what you talked about, and then we're going to talk about it a bit.
Yeah, so thanks. And I want to make sure first that everybody understands what identity is. And it's so, I believe, I have 7 kids, and so 4 girls and 3 boys. And, as we went through our parenting journey, I was at first very enamored with instructing my kids. I thought the best way that I needed to make sure that they knew what to do, and if they were instructed well, if they were taught well, then they would follow. But what I realized is it's more than just instruction's important, but identity is even more important. That if our kids, I love what you're talking about, the confident athlete, that if our kids understand who they are, first from their parents and then from God, they have the best chance of success. And so we find in talking to thousands of parents around the country and in churches and everywhere else that most parents emphasize so much about instruction and so much about correction that their kids leave. And many kids have this, they don't have a sense of identity. They have a sense of who their parents want them to be, not who they are. And when kids understand who they are, then they are much more likely to have less anxiousness, more confidence, just the ability to go handle the outside world. And we all know the outside world's getting tougher and tougher. So we went through some ways to really help your kids understand identity. It's just really what we believe about ourselves, and really taking the example that God gave us with Jesus. That, you know, one of the greatest one of my favorite interactions between God and Jesus is when Jesus was baptized. He came up out of the water, and God could have said anything. He's about to launch him into ministry. He could have said, Jesus, I want to make sure you do these things right, and don't forget this and do that. But he didn't. He said, hey, Jesus, I want everybody to know that this is my son whom I love. In him, I am well pleased. And even Jesus with his disciples, how if you just see how Jesus interacted with his disciples, he questioned them, he challenged them, but he also believed in them. He said, Peter, you're my rock. He said, he just instilled identity into them. And it's just a message I think that parents and youth leaders need to hear is, when we understand how to put identity into our kids, it really is a game changer for them.
You know, one of the things that you said that I really loved, and you've kind of hit on it already, but you said the greater identity is believed and the greater instruction is received.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that, and that we in effect think of your kid's heart like a little field, if you will, and the better that field is cultivated and plowed and cared for, then the better they're going to receive the instruction. Think about like this. So often we hear parents, and my kids have done it too, that we start the lecture and then we just see them tune out because they've heard it so many times before and they're not listening. And yet we don't know how to get them to listen. Well, what I had to learn over time is that I had to stop and go, hey, let's speak into them. Let's talk. Let's first focus on who they are and telling them how much I believe in them and things like that, and really change my tactics. And it wound up reaching my kids' hearts much more effectively. And now we teach parents how to do that. You know, let me give you an example that, you know, we talk about in here: encourage extravagantly and correct carefully. You know, so I'll give you an example that sometimes resonates with people. You know, I used to coach my sons, my kids. I coached all my kids in basketball primarily. And so, you know, and when I first coached basketball, you know, I coached 7 kids over 25 years. So I coached dozens and dozens of youth sports teams. And when I first coached them, I thought that I needed to get on to them a lot. And I needed to make sure that they knew what to do. But over time, I changed my tactics. And so my oldest son, Michael, who's 23 now, was reminding me about this. He said, Dad, do you remember when you were coaching me in basketball? And I said, oh gosh, where is this going? And he goes, Dad, when I wasn't doing what you wanted me to do on the court, when I wasn't being aggressive enough, you would tell me, Michael, that boy that's guarding you right now, he cannot hold you. Take the ball to the basket. And he said, Dad, I don't know if you believed it or not. And I don't know if it was true, but when I stepped out on the court, I believed differently about myself, and I believed differently about my opponent. None of the circumstances changed, but my attitude about myself changed, and I had the confidence to go take the ball to the basket. That's what I'm talking about when we talk about different tactics. We're not talking about changing the standards. We're talking about changing the tactics we use, the strategies we use to reach the hearts of our kids. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes. And I love what you just said, Don, because It's a great message that every parent needs to hear, but that also transcends into coaching. Coaches need to hear that message. So I'm taking notes of how to take that to the coaches I work with as well.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And youth leaders, because, so often, like, let's say, for example, you're in a youth situation and a kid shares something. Well, all of a sudden, everybody in the group, especially the leaders, want to give the kid advice about what to do to fix the problem. And hear me, everybody's doing it with great intentions. The parents and youth leaders and everybody, we're instructing people with the best of intentions. However, it's not the most effective. And so let's say that, that youth leader changes and just starts asking more questions and starts to encourage that person. Hey, I believe in you. I believe you can overcome that. What do you think? What do you think would be the best way to overcome that? Let the child, that's why we talk about later in the deal about in 5 words that have changed my life. 5 words that have changed my life more than probably any parenting phrase I've ever seen is encourage extravagantly and correct carefully. That so often as parents, we and youth leaders, we are very good at correction and we're not as good at encouragement and inspiration. And when we become better at encouragement and inspiration, we're picking away at this pathway to our kids' hearts that allows the instruction then to be better received.
I think that's awesome. It was a great message. And I mean, this is perfect because I hope all those that haven't heard it yet want more after listening to you, because it is such a great message. And you've really planted that hook that everyone needs to go listen to that. So thank you.
You bet.
Any other comments on Don's presentation from anyone else here?
I had written down quotes that I was going to ask him to address, and doggone it, if he didn't get the quotes right out of, I mean, exactly what I was going to do is what he led with and what he, everybody had underlined. Oh, I wanted him to talk about encourage extravagantly and correct carefully, and he hit that one going on. So there you go.
Well, and I'll leave it with at the last is, what you just said there, James. Sometimes parents will say, oh, you're taking the discipline out of my hands. All you want me to do is encourage, everybody gets a trophy and all that stuff. No, that's not it. It's not that we don't correct our kids. Please, parents, and, correct your kids. Don't let them be brats. But it's a matter of spectrum. Most parents overcorrect and under-encourage. And so the message that we have is and realize, parents, like we say in the message, the parent's job more than any one person, the world is going to tear down your kids. Don't join them in tearing them down. Be a different and go build them up. Tell them who they are instead of who they're not. Over and over and over again. Realize the world's beating them up. They're telling them they're not pretty enough. They're not smart enough. They're not good enough. They're not athletic enough. We are their biggest cheerleader, and we say, no, you are different. You are set apart. You are God's creation. You are made just like God made you to do. I enjoy you. I love you. And we do that over and over again. And we watch them transform because we are the most powerful influence in our lives, because that's the way God designed it.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. Yes. Thanks, Petra. All right. Well, thank you. Let's move on to Tammy, the power of why. You want to give a brief summary of what yours is about and start that conversation?
Well, if you've ever heard me speak, which Jeff, you can probably fill in the blanks for me by now. We've talked so much, but your why is everything. If you don't know why you're doing something, it's really hard to have sustained confidence. It's really hard to have lasting success at anything in life. And so to me, that's the foundation of having confidence, having happiness, having success. And I speak mainly from an athletic point of view, but I think that's in every area of life. And the more we focus on why we're doing something, the bigger picture, then the more likely we are to get the result we want versus focusing on the result and hoping we get that result. And I share, a lot of athletes, especially the Olympian athletes, you hear them all the time. They were focused on having fun or the joy of their sport. And more than not, they end up getting the result they want. So I think it's very important for parents, coaches to understand their child's why, not their why for their child. And
Mm.
when I work with athletes, that's one of the biggest issues of having to try to align with their parents. And so I try to help parents, help their child figure out the child's why. And parents be true to that and help their child really live with that and connect it and give ideas of how to do that. And then, Jeff and I, in our online Confident Athlete online program, Jeff has supplied a 7-step program of how you can find your why if you're kind of up in the air about it. It's a great technique, and anyone that would like it, please reach out and we'll send that to you. But your why is pretty impactful. I know I have gotten off course in life and in my job when I forget my why. And I keep my why right here above my computer because there's days I don't feel like getting on Zoom. There's days I don't feel like being positive. But when I read my why, say it out loud, it really puts it in perspective. And more times than not, helps me bring the energy that I need.
I think that's an important part, what you just said, pointing to it where you keep on your computer. And one of the things that I know Tammy shares with our athletes a lot is that they should repeat it often, that they should read it and all those things. And that's one thing I do. I write my why out every morning. And with my accountability groups, every single person, before they do their accountability, they state what their why is. And I think it's important because, like Tammy said, there's days you don't want to do those Zoom calls. You don't want to go to that early morning practice, whatever it is. But when you have a strong enough why, you do it because there's a real purpose behind what you're doing. And the 7 levels deep exercise that Tammy referred to, for myself, when I first was exposed to that exercise, I thought I had a pretty good why statement for myself. And I went through that and realized there is one that could mean a lot more to me. And it's been a really cool exercise to go through with people and see how they can discover what their true why is. Any other thoughts or comments on Tammy's? Lindsay, I want to hear what you think of Tammy's.
Lindsay
Ever
said
since starting
like you as well too many times.
yeah. I mean, ever since starting to work with Tammy, I've definitely been thinking a lot about it. Definitely to the point where I'm starting to think about it every day, thankfully. So my biggest thing, I kind of developed my why for I play softball in college. So I developed my why for so mine is just the feeling of community, just the joy that the sport has brought me since I was a little girl. So it's definitely something that I'm going to continue on for the rest of my life and hopefully one day even bring to the athletes that I work with. So it's definitely brought a pretty special, special and kind of cool meaning, I guess, to my life. So it's definitely made a big positive impact in my life so far.
Awesome. Thanks, Lindsay.
So I have a question. You were talking about the 7 steps. I haven't seen that yet, but I mean, so as a parent, I'm always interested in the parenting part of things. How do you get a child? At what age do you start talking about why? And how do you get a child there? I mean, you don't just say, tell me your why. They may not understand that. And, how do you interact with a child through the relationship to get them to understand their why?
And I think that's a great question, Don. And I often have parents ask me, well, when do I start with my child on their why or on the mental game? The best answer that I can say is maturity level of the child. When they're able to understand these concepts or what does the bigger picture mean? For some youth that can't, what I suggest to athletes, and we're speaking to an athletic realm here, but I think you can take it in any realm. So what I suggest to parents is get your child to list as many reasons why they love to play their sport. Because they get to see their friends, or they, female tennis players, they love the skirts they get to wear, or, all these little things that add joy. And so now we're focusing on why they love the sport, which through the years and as they mature mentally, that starts to help, the bigger picture.
But wouldn't this? I mean, I may be getting off track, so James just slap me electronically if I am. But wouldn't this also work with, like, why do we go to church? Why are we nice to our brother? Why are we? Doesn't it work for other things to teach this whole concept? I love it, of teaching them the why. Doesn't it work for other things too?
I wholeheartedly believe that. And I'm kind of laughing when you said that, because I think I aggravated my parents growing up because they said my middle name was why. Because
yes.
Well, why? Why do we do this? Well, why? Not questioning them, but wanting to know, like, why? Hey, go make up your bed. Why?
Yes.
I had a why for everything. And
because even like a
maybe
3-year-old
are
asks
transitioning a little bit, but I think it's important for parents to explain why, and that helps the child's development. It's not that I was trying to buck authority, but I wanted to know why. What's the purpose? And that when we know the purpose of something, then we have more motivation and we're able to put things in perspective better. So I think that's a great comment that you just made, Don.
Yeah, because don't you think that, especially teenagers, but I mean, even like a 3-year-old, the first thing they do is ask why. They're building, my wife calls it, they're building a database about their world. They're building a belief system. And so often we just want to tell them what to do, either athletes or youth leaders or whatever. But it seems like, I love your concept, because if they can understand the why, then they'll do it on their own. They'll do it themselves, right?
Yeah. It adds motivation.
Yeah, no doubt. That's awesome.
Can I add something to that too? I love that question, Don and Tammy. It's just so good because so much of it goes back. But I think about what Don said about identity and the work that I do with the Gallup assessment of finding strengths and talents is when you said what age, I think it's our job as leaders, as parents, as coaches, as teachers to start looking, and we can actually kind of see the why of the child. You can see the player on the field that's the more interactive, that's there for the social, that's rallying everybody around. That person probably has high communication talent. You can see the one that's real competitive, that's really focused. They may have high competition. You can see the ones that are more reserved, holding back more. And they might have that gift and talent of just learning and observing and gathering information. And so I always say it's not personal, it's personality, right? We're all that identity that you talked about, Don. We are given this God-given gift and talent, and it drives our why. It's why we show up, because it fuels who we were created to be.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's great. I feel like there's like a triangle between our 3 talks today.
Yeah, a lot of
we
it.
spoke about that yesterday. We spoke about that yesterday, how the talks yesterday, so many of them build upon each other. And when you put the schedule together, Tammy, you had no idea what people were saying. And then we had to switch people around because of scheduling conflicts and different reasons. And yet it all providentially got together in this way. So,
yeah, it's cool. I mean, even when Don was talking, I mean, I got goosebumps, some of the stuff he was saying, because, I work a lot with identity too, when we're talking about gifts and talents. But Tammy, do you happen to have your top 5 strengths handy?
I do not.
I should have pulled them up because now I'm curious, because you said my middle name was Y. So I'm like, she's got to have learner in her top 5, because learners want to know. Yeah. We love.
I don't know in order, but learner, and then trying to always include everyone.
Includer, yep, I've got that too. So I think with working with strengths, Tammy, like when you said that, it's so once we know who we are and who we're not, and once our parents can kind of see, then the more we pour into the strength and the talent, the more confident you become. So instead of the why is Tammy always, wow. Tammy's got the spirit and the gift of learning. She loves just the process of learning, doesn't necessarily need to be, an expert at it. So anyway, I just, I loved pulling that out and so many ways. And like you said, Dawn, to your identity, it's who you were created to be. And I think about an instrument, right? I think about a band. we need a variety of instruments. And so many times, especially our youth, when they haven't built that confidence, they're wanting to just blend in instead of, owning that they were created to stand out. And so they're like, well, I'll just be a clarinet too, or I'll just play the drums, or I'll just blend in over here, when really every one of us matters.
Amen.
That's awesome. You know what? And that is a great transition, Petra, into the unique power of you.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much about identity, and it's so much about the why. I really feel like it drives, the why. So I'll just piggyback off of what Tammy said, and then lead into the unique power of you. My why for what I do today, for who I am, really began when I started having a family. I was pregnant with my son, who's now 29, just moved to Japan. That's crazy. But
Is
I
that
remember this.
Is that the picture that is on Facebook of you hugging?
Yes. Always your babies, right? And I think about, but I can remember this day as if it was yesterday. And so I challenge those of you listening and those of you working with youth, and even Lindsay, as you're discovering your why, to really think about that moment that kind of was like a gut feeling, like a Holy Spirit moment, like something in you that just said, this is the way I'm supposed to go. And so I remember being pregnant with my son. My husband and I were at a restaurant, and this was before, right? I just said my son's 29. So this was a long time ago, before iPads and cell phones and all the things that now distract people. But I remember we were sitting at dinner, and I was kind of quiet. And so communication is also in my top strengths. And my husband's like, why are you so quiet? And I said, I mean, look around. No one's engaged. No one's talking to each other. The families are so disconnected. I just don't know. And then we ended up being in the car, and he said, you're still quiet. And I said, can we promise that our family will be engaged? That no matter what, we'll have conversations. I said, pinky promise. I said, I want us to be a family that is engaged. But we were young, having kids, and so that was a core value, that we'd always be engaged. We would always, make sure that we were communicating. And then we were young parents, and we were very ill-equipped. Thank God. He equips the ill-equipped. And we weren't. And I said, gosh, we've got to learn. We want to be the best parents, just like what we're all talking about, right? We want to be the best leaders, the best coaches, the best teachers. All of the intent is good. And so we learned a lot. And another core value, I said, honey, we got to be equipped. We got to be equipped for the teenagers, the sports. My kids played soccer. So we just got to stay equipped. And then later on, our kids were equipping us. In college, they were taking a marketing class. I said, oh my gosh, can you teach me? So that was a core value in our family, right? We're always engaged. We're always equipped. And then just like Don mentioned earlier, I used to build my kids up at home, and the world would tear them down. And so I taught them from very young, in this house, we will elevate each other. We will brag, we will celebrate, and in the world, we will be humble and hungry. But here, and I feel like even in this room here, in this virtual room, in this platform you guys have created on Facebook, here we will elevate each other, because guess what? There's enough tearing us down as leaders, coaches, teachers. And so we all got to come together. So just thank you again to our trio of hosts, that you're creating an environment where people can come and elevate. So that's my why, is to help people live an engaged, equipped, and elevated life. And that is really, really hard as kids get older and seasons change and life changes. But those are my core values for helping people find the unique power of you. So what I learned is, when I started going out and speaking, people would say, well, how do I motivate people? How do I get the right people on the right seat of the bus? And I had taken this assessment called Gallup Strengths Finder when I went. I was actually an entrepreneur, owned a business of leading 250 entrepreneurs in direct sales. And I went back to the corporate world, and they'd given me this assessment called the Strengths Finder. And I'd taken Myers-Briggs, I'd taken the DISC, I've taken all of them except for this one. And I received my report, and I'm like, who's in my house? Who knows me like this? This is crazy. And they give it to students too. So there's a student version of this assessment, and I've put the links in the work that I've shared with you guys. But sometimes, even though we have lots of encouragement and we have people speak life into us, and hopefully everybody listening does, and sometimes we're still confused. Who are we? What are we good at? What is our identity? What are some of our strengths? And I really started leaning into this assessment because it was a shortcut to tell people, hey, this is what you're really good at. And it really allowed me to identify some of my strengths that I used to hide away. So I say there's like 3 superpowers, right? There's the superpower of blending, trying to blend in with everyone. There's the superpower of hiding, trying to hide your strengths. And we want to use the superpower of igniting. Well, I used to blend a lot. My natural tendency is to include people. So it's to invite people to things that I really love, that have changed my life. And it turns out that's an includer strength, like you have too, Tammy. I'm sure Jeff and James and Lindsay too, or you wouldn't be on here, right? We love to be in community. Well, it made me really good at sales, which I didn't know, because if I had a product that I loved, it's really easy for me to talk about it. But because I was good at that, people would say, don't you feel pushy? You're inviting so many people. You're, talking to so many people, or, oh my gosh, there's, another person at our table. And so I thought, well, is that weird? Am I pushy? So I started hiding and started blending. Or people would say, well, gosh, nothing bad happens to you. You must be wearing rose-colored glasses all the time. Well, positivity is also one of my top strengths. And I was actually shocked. I'm like, well, doesn't everyone think this way? No, they don't. But it's not that I live in rose-colored glasses. It's not that the world is always great, but I learned the power of positivity as a first-generation immigrant when I didn't speak English. I learned that crossing my arms, walking around with my head down wasn't going to help. So I needed to develop positive body language, a positive mindset about my situation. And so it really ignited that power. And so it's a natural tendency that I have. And so people go, oh, nothing bad ever happens to her. She's so positive. And that's not true. And so, we develop these strengths. Some of it is nature, some of it is nurture, and it makes us who we are. And so back to the why and back to the identity, when we can identify what makes us unique, what is our God-given gift and what's our God-given talent? And those of you that are leading the youth, when you can look for that and give that child and that youth more of that, then they really ignite that unique power of you. Because a lot of times we look for, and sometimes with great intention, to make a player better, to make them be like the best player, to make the child learn how to do certain things. And all the while we're missing the thing that actually makes them unique and special. And I did that with my own kids. Of course, my daughter has dyslexia, and she was so creative and so vibrant. And I'm like, you got to read. And she did. And of course, she does have to. But I think I was so focused on what was wrong, I missed what was strong. And I think that if we can lean into what is strong in our youth and what makes them unique and special, and tweak the weaknesses, then they really are more powerful.
Well, your presentation was phenomenal, but I just want to make a comment, not about it. I am glad you're not a blender, because we would be deprived of the unique you that you are. So I just had to make that comment.
Well, thank you, Tammy. You've helped me with that too. If you haven't read The Confident Athlete, one of the big things, I learned, even with all my positivity, was the 5-1, right? Tell yourself 5 good things and 1 thing to work on. And I used to wear it like a badge of honor, the 5 bad things. Oh, I'm going to get better. I'm going to get better. And I also want to say here too, because you work primarily with athletes, I'm an executive coach as well. So I work with a lot of, high leadership ranking individuals. And when people are highly competitive, and Lindsay, I'm talking to you too, because you're a college athlete, you're about to go into, a different world. And when people are highly competitive, they end up doing a lot of things in life that really wasn't their gift or their strength, but somebody told them they couldn't do it. So I have coached a lot of people who end up being in their 50s and 60s, and they're in a career and they go, gosh, I've never been happy. I've never been satisfied. I've never been fulfilled. I don't know, why I'm here. And I said, well, what got you going into finance? My dad said I wasn't going to be good at math. So-and-so said I couldn't do it. And sure enough, we look at their top 5 strengths. Number 2, competition. Number 1, competition, right? So yes, we want to compete and we want to be the best. But it's that gut check. It's knowing to the core of who we are and really starting to look for what's right within ourselves than what's wrong with us. And I think as leaders as well, too, one more thing, and I'll be quiet. I'll toss it to someone else. But I just want to say, be aware of your leadership style, too. Be aware of your parenting style. So all of those strengths I talked about, my top 5 are positivity, learner, input, includer, strategic. Sometimes we can also be in overdrive with those strengths. Sometimes they may not be the best match for the incredibly gifted and talented child we are leading. So the more self-aware we are, the more other aware we become. Quick story, I actually coached a woman executive, and after we were done talking about her career transition, she said, can I send you my son's strengths? I'd love to just get your look at this. She says, we've had problems for about 5 years and we're seeing a counselor and a therapist. I'd really like to know what his strengths are. And it turned out that her number 1 was his 34. So there's 34 talents, 34 strengths. And his number 1 was her 34. And her number 1 was activator. So she was somebody that would activate, have an idea, go do it. His number 1 was deliberative. It's the complete opposite. Activator is the gas, deliberative is the brake. So when she would say, okay, we're going to do this. This is the sport you're going to play. Here's how we're going to do it. This is the best team for you. He would freeze. And so he would want to talk about it, deliberate on it. And she didn't. She moved fast, and she moved ahead. And she said, wow, this is exactly where we get stuck. 5 years of therapy. And I really just needed to know, right? What was his number 1 strength and where? And I said, so the next time you have an idea, your son, the next time you want to go, your son's gift, his strength is that he troubleshoots. So if you give him the space to do that, when you say, hey, I think I'm going to go skydiving. I'm on my next trip. I'm about to turn 50. We're going to go skydiving. And he's like, mom, right? But if she said, I want you to troubleshoot that for me. Give me all the ways, right? That's going to go wrong. What should I watch out for? And they did that. And he was able to say, well, I think about this. And she goes, oh my gosh, you're right. I didn't think about that. Make sure I have this in place. Make sure I have that in place. So we need to remember it's not always personal. It's personality. It's the way that we created, right? And some of us are the go, the competition, and some of us are more of the learning, more introverted. But we all matter. We all make a difference. And especially when you're talking about team sports, and when you're talking about, why, and you're talking about identity, Dawn, it is, we all matter. We all need each other. And my favorite quote by Don Clifton, who created StrengthsFinder, is, our differences are our advantages. Our differences are our advantages. So.
Petra, that was awesome. Thank you. And for those that haven't been on this whole time, we've talked about it. If you haven't watched these, or even if you're not registered, you still have access to day 1 and day 2. Go to ignitenextgen.com. You still get both days full access. So make sure to go register, because as you can tell by the conversation so far, it's amazing. The other thing that I think is important is that each of them has all their contact information, where you can find them on social media, their offers. And before we wrap up, we are going to go through everyone and talk about some of their offers and what's available there. Now that's all the presenters that were on with us today, right? But I want to talk about some more and hear your guys' thoughts on it. Let's start with Jeff Forster. He talked about the importance of controllables. Anyone want to share some thoughts on Jeff's presentation today?
Jeff, one of Jeff's quotes that I pulled from his presentation was, "Positive talk is like having a best friend in your head, and we have to encourage our teens to speak kindly to themselves. So when setbacks happen, they don't beat themselves up, but they encourage themselves to be resilient, to be adaptable, and to keep moving forward." Now, is that not synergy in messages today? I mean, all of us have this kind of
I was
synergy
going to
going
say,
on.
Absolutely.
he's speaking my language right there.
I was gonna toss it to you, Tammy. I wish we had like the ball, but Tammy, you got to talk about like your 5 to 1.
Our 5 to 1s are, and I didn't create the ratio, but it shows that anything we do in life, relationship based, skill development, but when we can focus on 5 positives to 1 thing we need to work on, that's when the most growth develops. So that's speaking my language, but I am a firm believer that our thoughts control our reality. So if we're encouraging ourselves, we're fueling ourselves.
Yes.
And as a recovering lecturer, as I call myself, I mean, I'm definitely a recovering instructor and lecturer because I still gravitate towards it. Becoming more encouraging and more inspiring. There's 2 things I feel like it happens. One of them is it can be exhausting. I say about myself, I used to think I was a practical person. I found out I was a negative person and I wanted to become a positive person, and so, but I find that in talking with parents and in my own journey that at first it seems really exhausting to be, oh my goodness, how many positive statements do I have to give this? But it really is more about a belief system that what you guys are talking about, I had to convert, if you will, just like we had to convert to Jesus. I had to convert and believe that 5 to 1 ratio was good because I valued my instruction. I liked my ideas. I had great counsel for my kids and for my athletes. And so therefore it really was hard for me to convert to do that. And so I just encourage parents, youth leaders, coaches to really, as you start this, it would be awkward. I'll tell a quick story. So, my youngest daughter was doing a performance at church one time, and she came out. It was like a dance music deal at church. And so they did a great job. And she came out and I said, Mackenzie, great job. I thought I was really, giving her. And my buddy came up behind me. He goes, Mackenzie, that was amazing. Oh my goodness, you guys must have worked so hard on that. You guys were so together and everything. And I just wanted to go crawl in a hole because I'm like, this guy, I said, I can't do this. I am not I told myself, I remember telling myself, this was 15 years ago, like, I am not an encourager. That's what I told myself. I am not an encourager. I'm practical. And I had to tell myself something differently. No, I am an encourager. I am this. I believe in this. And so I just want to tell parents that I feel like there's a lot of parents out there that struggle with this and that it feels like insincere. It feels like they're kind of having to fake it. And it's okay. Just go ahead and try it. It's like a new muscle. You'll find that over time, you will find great benefit to your relationship with your kids, your youth, your people, your athletes, whatever it is.
And, I find this ironic. Well, I don't know about ironic, but synergy. This is all connecting with Sherry's talk from yesterday with her self-talk. So anyway, I'm just seeing all the lines connecting here.
Well, let's keep the lines connecting then and talk about Brittany. She talked about those conversations, and the thing that I pulled out that I love, she says, the more we talk about how we feel, the less power it has over you. And I think, go ahead, James.
Well, I was going to say, Brittany is one of my favorite of all the presentations that we've done. And I just really love her message.
Did you just say you have a favorite?
Yeah, really. That's like a favorite child. Oh, come
We're
on.
talking about enthusiasm.
Did I say it was one of my
Encouragement.
Wow.
right, whatever.
Yeah, look, even Lindsay's not having it. Like, that's not happening. Come on, we're your team, James.
Yeah.
But one of the things that she talked about, the quotes that I
I'm
pulled for her is when we care more about who they are, talking about youth or talking about teens, as a person than what they do in school, than what they do in the court, than what they do at home. We need to care more about them as individuals and create space with 3 words like tell me more. They're going to be game changers for teenagers, just showing them that you care, encouraging them extravagantly, showing them that you care. And hers is her whole message of helping kids overcome some of the mental health problems, and her message to us in this presentation of this is how you get them to talk. They need to talk in order to help them through the things that are going on. And that relates back to kind of the things that we talked about yesterday with social media being such a bad influence and how it's creating such heavy things. So I really enjoyed hers. That's one of the reasons why it's my favorite, because it's just, it speaks to where I'm at. It's in the space that I'm thinking right now, and the things that I'm writing about and the things that I'm studying. You know, it was right there in it. So I listened to that one several times myself. So I ran the view count up on that one myself.
No, James, you're absolutely right. I mean, being a Gallup strengths coach, Gallup is just massively, surveys, data all the time. I'm on a webinar every week. And they do say, I mean, the mental health crisis will be the next pandemic, right? So people are really, all the negative self-talk, and I love what she talked about too. I loved it too. My favorite topic, she's dynamic. I mean, all of the speakers, again, it's such an honor to be here, but I love how she says, tell me more, and how she really is talking about that bridge of vulnerability, giving people a safe space. Tell me more is my favorite question to ask. Tell me more about it. You don't have to have all the answers. And also as a leader, coach, parent, teacher, sometimes you're going to hear some things from the youth. You may not have an immediate answer. You may not have a fix. And I think we always feel like we need to have a fix. And I think just sitting with people and practicing empathy and asking, tell me more.
Yeah. And one of those that I love, tell me more. And, questions like, I don't know if I understand this. Can I ask you more so that I can understand better? I think that, can people see us right now, James?
Yeah, they can still see us.
So think about this, so a lot of times if the kid's here and we want them to see God, what we'd like them to do is see the answer, see the solution. But often as the parent, we are right here. And we are lecturing them and we are telling them what to do. And we actually inhibit them from seeing God. They can't see God because they can't get away from us. Well, what if instead of being here lecturing them, we come alongside them? Now we can both see God together. And we help them see God and see the solution or whatever we're going to talk about. We help them see that for themselves, and that's really changed my life. Rather than me telling them what to do, if I could get them, and I learned this more from my wife than anyone. I always tell husbands, if you'll become a student of your wife instead of her critic, you'll be amazed what you learn about family. But what she's so good at is she would help them to see the solution themselves, and then they bought in because now it was their solution, not mine. And they owned it in a way that they would start to, and again, they knew the why, they believed in the power themselves so that they would act on it. I think that's just, tell me more starts that process, because they know they did wrong usually. They know what they need to do. And we just need to help them find it. And that was a fundamental thing I had to learn. It took me 7 kids to learn it, I guess, because I have 7 kids. It took me a lot to learn that, to how to help them get to the solution rather than me telling to them all the time.
One of these days, Don, I'm gonna get Suzanne is gonna be on one of these things. I keep asking both of you, and you're the one that shows up. I'm like, Does he not understand? I want his wife there.
Yeah, well, see,
How do you
if I,
Talk about favorites tonight, James.
if I do that, James, you'll never want me back. That's the problem. See, it's kind of like.
There's a great question. Hello, Melissa. She's in the chat. Such a champion for the youth, Melissa. But she's asking, I'd like to hear how she gets them to talk. So obviously, Brittany's not here, but you guys know her well. Have you, in conversations with her, how does she? I mean, she's asking them, tell me more. But how does she create that safe space?
One of her quotes that I wrote down was that, let them create space and hold space so that they know that they're not alone and they can unburden themselves of the feelings that they have. So it's really just providing them a place as parents for them to talk in a non-judgmental type way. That's hard to do as parents because you're immediately thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want you to screw up. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. I want you to move forward. I want you to get what's going on. And so Brittany's encouraging, hey, let's just back off just a little bit. And you need to read her bio to get the fact that, she's also someone who's experienced this as a young person herself, worked as a school counselor before going into the youth development and youth speaking field as well. So it's not just something that, she pulls out of the air. It's just tried and true stuff that she's done before. So.
Well, this is awesome. Appreciate you guys. Why don't we take a minute here and we'll start with you, Tammy. I know many of you have different things going on that you're sharing opportunities of upcoming events and stuff or offers. Tammy, do you want to start and talk about some of the things you're doing?
Coming up with one of our speakers last night, Dora, the world champion table tennis. And I thought, her presentation on dealing with stress was excellent. But Dora and I are doing a parents playbook on August the 20th. I think we have a link for parents to join for that. Jeff and I have a 5-day confidence challenge coming up at the end of the month. Looking forward to that. And then Jeff and I have offering 2 free weeks to our Confident Athlete online program as well. And I hadn't told Jeff this, throwing it on him, but since it's 2024 Olympics, 24% off of Challenger Deep. But we have a lot of Olympians, and
If you buy 20, you get 24% off.
Yeah.
2024.
Yeah. So a lot of good stories about athletes and how they rose above adversity and using their lessons. And I've taken so many notes. I've got enough for 2 more books, Jeff. So let's get ready.
Let's do it. Awesome. Don, what about yourself?
The best thing, at Crazy Cool Family, we really, years ago when I was trying to figure all this out, I said, I wish someone would write me a playbook that, what are the key concepts? I'm a guy. I said, just show me where to go. I mean, just point me in a direction and do it. And so I never could find it. And so we started to write it. And that's really what created our ministry in the first place. And so this year we came out with 2 workbooks right here and they're 2 6-session guides, very easy to do. And I'll just put, we sell them on Amazon. You can go to Amazon and just type in Don Manning. There's about 7 parenting books in there, but really these 2 are the keys. I believe if parents will go through these workbooks, it will cast a vision for their family and it gives them the key concepts. I'll put in the chat a URL that I think it just went in there, just a special offer to give special pricing on those 2 guidebooks. And so I would recommend that, any parent that comes and wants to interact with us, get those guidebooks and go through them as a parent, as a couple, if you're married. And it will teach you a lot of the concepts we're talking about, what we've been talking about today, about instilling identity in your kids, about building the culture in your home where everyone needs to win at family. All our kids need to love Jesus. All our kids need to be connected to us and each other. And that's what those guidebooks will show you how to do that.
Awesome. Thank you. Petra.
Yes, I'm like taking notes too, Tammy. Well, you can find me at petracrebs.com. And the way that I work with youth and families and teachers is really just by igniting the strengths with the Clifton Strengths Assessment, like some of the stories I shared earlier. It's if you are wanting to get to know your child and their strengths and how it integrates with yours, whether it's one-on-one with your child or whether it's your entire family. I do family sessions, I do overviews to really enhance communication and connection and the values of engagement, equipping, and elevating your family, but also your teams. So once you know the gifts and the talents of your team, we do student surveys and student assessments, and there's a top 5. And then I created team DNA grid so that you know which domain your players, your athletes fall into, and then how to coach them accordingly. So is this person somebody that's going to want more data? Is this somebody that is going to work better hands-on? And so I'm a former teacher and educator, and so I really come from that lens when I work with teams or parents and youth. And so I'm excited to work with any of you. You can book a 30-minute complimentary call to see if I could serve you. And if not, I'm part of a great team. I have resources for you, and I'd love to help.
Great. And again, ignitenextgen.com. You can sign up for the summit. And under every presenter's, on their presenter page, they have all their links. Brittany and Jeff both have books. They're available too on their links, so make sure you check out theirs. But yeah, please check it out. As you can tell from tonight, there's Brittany's right there.
His favorite again. Look, he's
Come on.
I got my Challenger Deep right here.
There we go.
Oh, there you go.
Three to 1.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh wow! I made the James McLam page. Wow.
You see me looking when you mentioned that. When you look over to the left, I was like, "Where is that?"
Yeah, he had to go find it, Don. He had to go find it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We definitely are not a shortage of books to read in this bunch. So there's so many good ones, so much great material. So
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well,
James,
thank you guys.
Yeah, James, thanks to you guys for putting all this together. I'm like Petra, just privileged to be a part of this, and just even tonight, learning so much from you guys. Love your passion, and just kind of summarizing a little bit is that, man, parents, go be your kid, and youth leaders, go be your kid's biggest cheerleader and watch them blossom. Watch them come alive. It's actually super fun to watch somebody in your care come alive. And so I just want to encourage parents and leaders to go try it, because it really is fun to parent and to lead that way.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
James, do you want to wrap it up with a preview of tomorrow?
All right, tomorrow the 5 speakers are AJ and Tammy. You remember on the topics on any of these, because I don't have them in front of me. He was talking about how to overcome fear. Dr. Dre's talking about gentle parenting. Nick Bowers is the middle school specialist. Amazing content there. That would be my wife's favorite, because she's following her quite frequently. And Randy Gravitz talking about the 5 heart habits of a leader, that really is speaking to fathers in this one. And then Eric is going to bring it through on lessons he learned from playing football. The assert, I believe is his content. Yep. Eric Reeves is doing that. So those are our 5 tomorrow. We'll be back again on the same bat time, the same bat channel. And if you know that analogy, you are what that means. You are old. You are very old. And if you saw it when it first came out live, you are extremely old.
That's you and me, James.
No, I was not alive when that was airing. I was not alive when that was airing. So any wrap up comments?
No, it's a pleasure to be here. I love it. How Don said, alive. We're igniting.
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you to those that were in the comments section. Really appreciate that. Melissa, Mark, Aaron, is awesome. Thank you guys.
Thank y'all.
All right. And
bye.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Tomorrow.